This morning, a very important topic in this hour, grooming gangs in the UK. I have been wanting to cover this conversation. We've seen the stories developed over this week, and clearly, just to remind all of us, we can't talk about any specific court cases, ongoing court cases. I know there'll be a great deal of you out there who are very frustrated by certain events this week, certain people being arrested or whatever. What we have to remember is that the police are trying to get this case through court. They are trying to get different individuals to go through court properly, and if by any chance we are to go against the court, then we will end up having this court case thrown out. So at no point in this show can we mention in any way any court case that is ongoing. I'm going to move quickly to Mohan, who's been kind enough to join us here in studio, even though he has a meeting he's supposed to be at, so he has to whisk away. But Mohan, the reason I managed to track you down with my brilliant listeners' help, my followers' help, I was like, who is this gentleman? Let's make it a general court case that you were standing outside of. Why were you standing outside a court case on the day that individuals were going to court about a grooming case?
I think it's about supporting the families who've gone through the traumatic experience of their children being abused. And it's about showing solidarity that, abuse of this kind shouldn't be happening in Britain. So it's about uniting, holding hands and saying, no, it's got to stop. And the more people that are out there, the better it will be. And I think the more people that are out there and diverse, from different cultures and different backgrounds, then, the politicians and the people upstairs have got to listen and watch and put in the procedures to stop this.
Absolutely. And do you want to say a little bit about, because obviously I can see you and how fantastic you are. I actually want to grow a beard myself. I'm sure that's not too far off either. But maybe you could just tell us, or tell the listeners who can't necessarily see you, although they can at lbc.co.uk, about your community, about the group you represent. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we founded the Sikh Awareness Society back in 1997 when, through the grapevine, we were getting a lot of cases where young Sikh girls were being groomed, and coming across cases, we realized there was no organization within the Sikh community that was dealing with these kind of things. So 5 of us actually formed a group, and it's Sikh Awareness Society. So it's a society raising awareness on taboo issues. We started just by raising awareness, but then it became the helping, and now we do the whole kit and caboodle. It's for the last 20 years, the cases have been increasing. The awareness is kicked in. We first started with the Sikh community. We were helping the Hindu community. We're helping the Buddhist community. We've been in churches, and the only places where we're not allowed in, or we've never been sort of asked to go in, is the madrasas or the mosques.
Absolutely. And when you think about the communities you work with, you go around talking to individuals. Can you give us an example of the sorts of things you're talking about? What's the messaging, the sort of key messaging you're trying to deliver?
Well, the position that we're in at this present time, so how big the problem is, and how we need to then as communities unite together and find a solution. So we're not talking about this in 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road and it's still got a problem. So we want to put a way forward as well. So we raise the awareness, and then we seek awareness. We sort of take on board what people and communities have got to say, and then we try to push our parliamentary figures into thinking that way.
And I'm now thinking about a specific, having watched and listened and read, and there's lots of stuff out there. I can help push it on my Twitter later, videos with you, a BBC programme that you made about specific cases, without necessarily identifying obviously individuals. I'm thinking about 1 or 2 specific instances where perhaps parents have been frustrated because the police didn't seem to want to know, or maybe another example of someone within your community who they've had problems with their own daughter, and how your community handles that. So what would you, just a couple of individual examples might help to give light to some of this.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the particular documentary that the BBC done about 3 years ago, there were a wide range of cases where a 12-year-old girl was groomed. She was failed by the council, Slough Council. They were moved. The family moved to Walsall. She was failed there. The police didn't take on board what the family was saying, so the family were ostracised, and the girl was then taken into care, and then the groomer was able to abuse her and use her, and the family had no say. And then after 2-3 years of all this research in the police and a simple apology, but the girl was completely destroyed, and that was sort of covered.
And just when you say the word the family, I know the case you're talking about. Yes, they sold their house, they moved completely to try and start afresh. Again, that happened, and they were ostracised. When you say they were ostracised, could you help explain why that might be?
I don't think the groomers are a couple of steps ahead of us. When the law came in of false marriages, now that was a good law. Forced marriages, that was a good law. But the groomer is using that, so he's saying to a 15-16-year-old girl, go to the police, say you're going to be forcefully married, and they'll take you straight into care without even asking, because that's the new law, and that's the thing that's in. So straight away, there becomes a wall between the parent and the authorities.
I see what you're saying. So because forced marriage is no longer allowed in the UK,
that's right, yeah.
The daughter, for example, can go to the police, say she's going to be forced into marriage. That will ostracise her from her family. She'll be taken into care.
That's right.
And then the groomers have got free range
access to, because the groomer, she's obviously going to contact the groomer because she perceives this as a boyfriend
and as a new family.
That's
almost
right, yeah. So she's going to be in contact with her, but she's got no contact with the family has no contact with the daughter. The authorities are not really been open about everything, and with this particular case, after 3 years, they apologised, and apology is no good when you've got a child who's completely damaged and destroyed.
And in terms of the authorities, I'm thinking of two levels. One, and I've had so many emails. You have so much support out there. Emails from Canada, from America, all incredibly supportive of you and your community, the Sikh community, for speaking out. What is the problem with the police? Perhaps that's not a kind question. What is it with the authorities? Is there too much cultural sensitivity? Is there too much political correctness? What is this?
I think it is
problem?
Down to political correctness, but it's also down to nobody wants to be called a racist. Nobody wants to call a spade a spade. Nobody really is grabbing the bull by the horns and saying no. Abuse is abuse. But when they don't want to be labelled that we're after one community or targeting one community. So the MPs and the police, you can see all the reports coming out of Rotherham, the failings of the police, the failings of the local councillors, the failing of the whole system failed, and that's what's been happening for the last 30 years. And it is PC. People are just too afraid to. Just too afraid to speak the truth. And this is what really, really bugs us. I mean, when they label an Asian problem, come on, really think of it. Isn't it an Asian problem? Asia is a very, very big continent. And, even if you go back into the 70s when England played football out in Europe and there were riots, they were called English hooligans. They weren't called European hooligans. They were called English hooligans.
So it's a point I had just here, a note, actually, I wanted to ask you, and I appreciate it's not a terribly sensitive question, but when other media outlets use the word Asian as a sort of euphemism for to avoid addressing any particular culture or faith system, is that something that's hard? In the Sikh community, for example, you get this bracket Asian. That feels wrong in itself then.
Well, it's insulting because we're all tarnished with the same brush. Now, West Midlands Police, I can actually say that because they were sitting on information for the last 40 years and they know 85% of the perpetrators were Asians. And when you look at the names, they would belong to one particular community. Why don't you say that? And this is what really bugs us. This is where we want the media to change and use the right terminology and the right words. So not everybody's affected by it. Those that are affected, if they use the right terminology and the right words, at least we can put the resources towards that to tackle the problem. But when you put Asia as a big continent, where do you start?
And I appreciate we have to let you go very soon, but I want you to be able to talk and have a moment to say what you're actually doing. Maybe there's a programme that you've started work on you want to talk about.
Yeah, we've been requested and we've been working on this, and this is 20 years of experience that we've put into this project. We're actually teaching a 10-week course throughout the country in different centres for parents to spot the signs, because children are not coming and talking, and the secrecy with the groomer and what's the name. So through body language, through certain psychology, we're teaching parents how to bulletproof your family, sort of thing. So we're not crying, or we're not standing outside courtrooms shouting, save our children. We want the parents to start at parental level, and then at school level, and then further on. So we can educate the whole community, because children spend time in school, 8 hours, they spend more time at home. Why can't we get this into the mainstream school system? And we're teaching the parents, and that's what we're rolling out.
It sounds fantastic. I completely want to come along. And if people want to access or find a way of getting into your 10-week course, or maybe a school out there, maybe a headmistress, headmaster's listening, how could they get in touch with you? We'll make sure we get the details on the website afterwards. But if you just want to...
Well, it's through social media, through our webpage. You can just message us.
The webpage address is?
That's a good one.
It's don't worry, we'll find it.
Yeah, but through the social media and
sasorg.co.uk.
That's right.
So that's all one word, sasorg, sasorg.co.uk.
Yeah.
That's your website.
And the other thing that we're pushing for, and this is very important, when with this particular crime, by the time the child's realised what's happened to it, it's damaged. So what we're pushing the authorities is really to act before. Don't wait for the victim to come up to you. Why can't when a third party comes to, like a parent, like a guardian, like a teacher who reports that the child, so you don't need the child's to come up to tell you. You take on board what the third party is saying, so you can start investigating these people before the damage is done.
Yes, because presumably you would say that at that point, when the child's finally got to a point where, and I'm just thinking of a case study I read yesterday, a child discovered with a fractured skull, unconscious in a pool of her own blood. At that point, it's too late.
That's right, yeah. And that's what we're trying to push for, and with the Asian tag we're trying to push for, and we just want an open debate on this subject, because it's very divisive. It will split communities. So we don't want rioting on the streets in the next 10-15 years because we haven't done anything about it now, because we all know it's a problem. So we know it's a mega problem. Every second week, every third week, there's a court case. There's gangs of groups of men, 5, 10, 15, and these groups of men they're not just friends. They're uncles. They're brothers. And I'm sure that their own communities know. So we want an open dialogue, so that we don't have problems further down the road. So these words like racism and all these don't exist in my vocabulary, because there's a crime that's been committed on the streets of Britain, and we need to dig deep and have an honest sort of reflection on it, and put in the procedures that will eliminate this kind of crime, so it won't divide us who we live in Britain. And it's a beautiful society, and it's given a lot to us, and we'd like to leave that sort of legacy for our kids and everything, so we can all work together.
Mohan, I love you. I completely love you. I think you're a brilliant man. I thank you sincerely to you and your team here, and your lovely, is it your niece? Your lovely niece who's come with you, who's absolutely fabulous and way too utterly brilliant to even for me to be anywhere near her. But you're so fantastic. The message you're trying to share is so important, and I hope and I encourage many of my liberal friends in the media, and feminists also, who I really think more feminists could stop marching around with placards and invite you to help come and speak, for people just to get the conversation going, to start making a difference. So thank you so much. We'll put all your details up on the website, and anything we can do for you, I can do for you, do let us know. Thank you very much indeed.
For having us here.
Thank you very much.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.